124 of the Treaty of the Establishment of the East African Community recognized the need for peace and security within the East African partner states. The same article spells out wide-ranging approaches to implement in order to have a stable and secure environment within the region. This kind of environment is geared toward promoting the development and harmonizing living of the people of the East African community. Dear Honorable, let's look a little bit about peace and security. According to Wikipedia, peace is a concept of socialized friendship and harmony in the absence of hostility and violence. According to Wikipedia again, security is protection from or resilience against potential harm caused by others by restraining the freedom for the actors to act. Honorable, let's begin by the root. For me, I think peace begins in ourselves, in our hearts, and then in our family, in our community, in our country, in our region, and go beyond in our continent. But let's stay in our region. I don't know about your countries, but I'm sure that even if your home it's like the same of my home, I mean Burundi, because we are in the same community. So we have many in the same community, which is common. I mean in the country member states. But in my country, and also I think in yours, peace are disturbed by many things. For example, peace can be disturbed by the wrong dosage of alcohol, a wife or a husband who is unhappy in his family. Peace can be disturbed by poverty, by conflict over the land and cultivate, etc. If I want to list all the facts that can disturb peace, it's a lot, it's many. So, peace is a process. It's something which you cultivate. Peace is not something which you think and you can get just as you want, but you must cultivate peace so that you can get the peace. Peace is culture. So the role of education in peace, resolution of conflict without resorting to the violence, and the essential condition for establishing peace in the society. Peace is an attitude toward life which strengthens social cohesion and makes life worth living. Education can play a positive role in this direction. Let's say that education is a pillar of development. I think if we do not have peace, what we can do, there are no good results without peace. Peace is the pillar of everything. Uh, so I can develop a culture, peace, it can develop a culture of amity and peace with the love of others, mutual respect for each other, and better understanding for others' feelings. When we look well and when we analyze what is happening in the world, we see that a human being, he has a habit of destroying. So I don't know why, but education can change that into the lasting peace building. But to achieve this, dear Honorable, we need a common cause as East African community, a common interest, and I thank God for that. In East African community, we have the same goal. So, my resolution on this motion, can say my bill, is to implement all member states peace education from primary schools to university, because these young people are the leader of tomorrow, and they must know that peace and security are essential for the sustainable development and community, and they need to know that it's their role to play for a development of our our East African community. So another thing, to put youth at the forefront in implementing EAC Youth Peace and Security Strategy. To create a peace award in East African community and organized locally, regionally, which will very help strongly in promotion of peace in the region. Found the organizations which are focused in this field, peace and security, peace building, in our respective country. I think we have the organization which focused on peace building. So if they have the funds to exercise very well their function and their will, I think peace and security can be a good initiative to promote our development, because as I said, when we didn't have peace and security, there is no development. So we need also to train youth on methods of conflict resolution and give them the flow to show their capacity. The youth are very, very, very strong. So let me give you a small example. I saw on my behalf, I saw that education is a key of all. So I decided to found a group of young people like me, which called the Burundian Youth for Peace. And we teach young people of the secondary school how they can resolve a problem pacifically without conflict in using critical thinking. And it's so wonderful when you see, when you receive a testimony of a young child that she or he has resolved a conflict pacifically in his or her class, that she or he has found a solution between the conflict with his classmate. It's so wonderful. You can imagine. Because we need a sustainable peace. we must use what we have as an asset. Africa has youngest population in the world with more than 400 millions young people aged between the age of 15 to 35 years. If you want more clarification, you can find this affirmation on African Union website on the field of youth development. In Africa, according to Oxford Economics, the number of young people under the age of 24 will increase by 20% over the next decade. So I suggest that the East African community do everything it can to give this task to us as young people. Because if we analyze very well, in all problems, they are related to the absence of security. We use youth. We saw it in Burundi in 2015, and we continue to see that many programs, they use youth because youth are most popular in Africa. And also, you see that even if there are no something which are in process to protect youth, they can go in a wrong way, so that East African can focus his efforts to build a good generation which can promote peace and security and develop their development. So I suggest, I wonder, instead of using our important force, which is youth, to destroy development, why the member state will not take this opportunity to use this important force in building development? We are here as a young, and what we want is the development of East African community. Please use us. When we go to the culture, let's say that culture is our identity, and we can't deny our identity. There are a strong connection between people's identity and culture. I'm not saying that all our culture are good to follow, but in culture, we have many good things which can help us in peace building. For example, in Burundi, there was a dialogue between families members called Ikiyago Chokuziko. When they were waiting for a dinner, it was the culture of dialogue between families, which until now I believe we need. In culture of Burundi and Rwanda, I say it like, but because before we was one country, Burundi and Rwanda. So our grandfathers in the past used to settle their problems in family by what we called inhayo kumugumya, traditional justice, which is also good for me. So, in one word, I believe that culture should be useful to us by using it in promotion of love in our community. We can select which is good in our culture and use it. So, my bill on this, we shall have a festival in East African community which is focused on exchange culture. I think it can help us in development and exchange our culture so that we can get something in common. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Ferdinand. Okay. Yes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ferdinand. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Madam Speaker, you forgive me there again. I'm raising on that this motion for a resolution of East African Youth Parliament urging member states to address violence and conflict resolution prevention through education and culture. I'll start with education, which I seem so passionate about. I think our education system in Uganda and East Africa at large is really based on a lot of theory, and yet it is supposed to be preparing a citizen that is going to help the nation and the country, or even the region. But then if we only keep on getting theory, it will not help us very well. That is why we shall start looking for jobs and end up doing stuff that we didn't study for. Now, if we use education to solve issues in the society like violence, for example, myself, I think conflict resolution for a person who has gone through a lot of character development, that should not be a big thing. In fact, they should be ambassadors of conflict resolution, or they should be people to mitigate violence from culture. Now, I am supporting this motion by also suggesting that somehow we should change the education system to emphasize character development, to emphasize emotional integrity, emotional awareness and all that, because you realize violence starts from issues of not handling emotions very well. So I think if at all we stopped emphasizing the speaking of maybe English, or we stopped emphasizing social studies, but emphasize on things that will help us as citizens. For example, character development in schools. It will help on issues like mitigating violence and conflict resolution. About culture, lastly, we pride in our culture, but I think this parliament should encourage our culture leaders to find ways on compromising, because there are certain cultures that do not accept a lot of relating with people from other culture. That really is a bad thing, and it is what is killing not only East African countries, but Africa at large. Some of our cultures don't encourage association with other cultures. I think as a government or as a parliament, we should encourage cultural leaders to allow intermarriage. And I think it is going to be the biggest solution of doing away with that hatred, because it goes away from not only associating to hatred, competition for us, this tribe, we are better than this tribe, and then there comes up conflicts. But if at all we allowed intermarriage, I think this conflict will be solved and we will have gotten a solution to all this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Julia.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Mine is on, I'll also start off where he ended, on culture. Whereas we are using culture to address violence, especially in East Africa or Africa in general, we are seeing culture being one of the key drivers of violence. People in Ethiopia, people, for example, the Rwandan genocide, people are killing themselves because of what culture tells them, yeah? And I would agree on the role that must be played by cultural leaders, but also education, as far as changing some of the myths or whatever culture has been based on that divides people. If we can use education as a tool to harmonize some of these differences in culture, because while we go to schools with different people across different tribes, but you'll see that still culture is pushing certain tribes to associate with fellow tribe mates and leaving the rest out, yeah? So if we can find a way to harmonize cultural differences through cultural leaders and even through our education system, then it is something that would also help to address violence or as a conflict resolution measurement. The other thing is, I want to appreciate the move of the motion, but most of the violence cases we are having are as a result of the inept political leadership, police brutality, and so many things around leadership and governance. And then how do we address this? You see, for example, in Uganda, subjects like political education were banned. And these were subjects that were actually enlightening us about the politics of our country, the history of our country, how have leaders been performing, how do we seek to improve our country, like what has been going on in regards to maintaining peace and stability. But because governments are now moving away from trying to educate their system, their students, or we, the young generation, about how we should function, supporting each other, and how the government easily supports functions, I think it is a disservice, and I think we should push for a statement of such subjects in schools, because they do so much of helping us to be patriotic, love our country, know where we come from, and appreciate that we can coexist and push the country together. I beg to submit.
Thank you. Let's welcome Honorable Howard.
All right, much obliged, Madam Speaker. So I would like to associate myself with a submission by Honorable Julia, because I think that education can play and does indeed play a critical role in redefining and shaping our cultures. For example, we look at the aspects of intolerance, because violence and conflict resolution essentially fit within the ambit of the discussion on tolerance, right? Because we live in a very heterogeneous society, right? So we must learn to accommodate each other. But also in accommodating each other, we understand even personalities differ, right? So how do we tailor our societies or our belief systems around the fact that we are different? So how do we live in diversity, right? So, Madam Speaker, I thought perhaps it would be critical to this debate to also expand the scope in our discourse on culture and education, because I'm going to look at it twofold. Firstly, the education of, say, young people, but also the education of the masses, right? The populace, general citizenry. And in light of the education of the citizenry, Madam Speaker, you find, for example, if you interrogate the nature of politics that we have, because we are discussing violence and conflict resolution, you realize that the burden that every government in the region would have after an election is to find means of now bringing the citizenry together, right? Because the nature of our politics intrinsically is divisive, right? So you find that because of that nature, and the very, very violent, right? Be it in our youth councils, be it in our youth structures, be it in mainstream politics, it has an iota of violence somewhere, right? And the burden of the leader that has been elected after is to find a unifying factor, right? Usually. So you find that violence and intolerance, it supersedes what we understand, for example, individuals, to say, for example, even families, because we have what we call gender-based violence. And we see this, for example, at the family level, right? Going into domestic violence and matters of the like, right? So what we're talking about education and culture, and there are cultures that actually encourage gender-based violence or domestic violence. And in some cultures, for instance, in Uganda, it's an expression. Ironically, I don't understand how something like that is an expression of intimacy. But well, there are societies that believe, and they've taught the women to believe that if your husband does not beat you, then they do not love you, right? And that is a reality. Believe me, it is a reality. So that's the role education can and does play, because education teaches you as an individual to question the very essence of your belief system, right? So if we choose to adopt a let's say a harmonized policy in the region around the education of the young people, to bring them up to be tolerant and to understand that you can thrive in diversity, but also to educate the masses, so we have a sustainable model. Madam Speaker, much obliged.
Thank you. Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In my opinion, I think we have like limit the discussion to culture, which is based on ethnicity or my tribe or the place I'm coming from. But culture is the way you also dress, how you talk, how you communicate, and that really affects our conflict resolution. Because, for example, you are a third party, a mediator in a conflict between even just two people in your school. The way you talk, the pace at which you talk, how you smile, the non-verbal communication is really important in our conflict resolution. And I think it is not we should not only have them in our education system, but also have civic education, so that those people who are in our villages, the ones that are sorry, the ones that are illiterate can get the civic education in a language in a language they know best, maybe in their mother tongue or in any other language, so that not only are the elite of the society able to solve problems, but even those people, because for example in Kenya, cattle rustling is among those people who are illiterate, and among the communities deep inside Kenya, the northern part. But if we get civic education by people around that place to try and explain to them how it is really important to coexist, to have a common cause, I think we can move from all this to maybe a very different perspective of how you see another person, how you see your neighbor, how you see your classmate, and even in East Africa, how you see another country. Culture should be diverse and outscale. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Yusuf? Yes.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, and my fellow honorables. I think also the member states should go ahead and encourage proper parenting, because they always say that charity begins at home. A violent child, a violent person can be determined right away from the childhood. How does a parent sit down the child and tells the child to respect the values of the other, not to be violent, and so on and so forth? Are you kind of a parent who sees your child beating a child of a neighbor and you encourage the fight? Or you are kind of a parent who sees your child insulting the child of a neighbor, you put down your child and you do a simple punishing of the child. So proper parenting is key and has to be implemented. Also, if you look at our generation, we have moved far away from culture, from the African culture, and we've adopted the foreign culture. For example, we had fire point discussions at village levels, which could accommodate intergenerational categories. The young, the old could sit around the fire point and they do storytellings, they discuss each other, they do education to the young people, what they should do for ensuring that all communities live in harmony. But today, we no longer cherish the fire point discussions. I think it should be the time, the young Africans, to revive the fire point discussions at the village levels. It will create a platform for us to know, to discuss the challenges, come up with the solutions that are affecting us and the neighbors. Also, the issue of the language, Madam Right Honorable Speaker, is key. If we encourage the member states to adopt the language which I'm sure we have, and we go ahead and teach this very language to our children right away from nursery levels, and we implement this, one language will enable us to form a strong unity. You know what a language can do. You know what happened to those who were building a tower to reach God. They were speaking one language. They were able to communicate and understand each other. So God wisely had to bring more languages. So it's the time for our member states leaders to go ahead and ensure and implement that one language is taught, and we come up with a generation that appreciates one language. Lastly, Madam Speaker, it should be the issue of the role of our leaders. What is the message being given by our leaders? Recently, you saw a certain leader from Uganda tweeting, I can take over Nairobi within 2 weeks. What does that message communicate to me as a young person? What kind of message are our leaders preaching outside there? What is that kind of message the pastors are preaching outside there? The religious leaders are preaching outside there. The political leaders are preaching outside there. There is a leader who told his people that go and insult them, the issues with the police, and don't leave it for me. Such kind of messages leaders are giving to the people. So the other time you saw is Mr. Odinga saying, I cannot be on the same podium with a thief. Such kind of message. Our leaders are speaking out. So the leaders must act exemplary, must be very careful the words they speak out, must preach things that unite people, must preach patriotism, togetherness, rather than preaching things that will make us separate and fight one another.
Point of order.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Let us give a chance to people on Zoom, online discussion.
Yes. Good afternoon. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Are you getting me?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Madam. How are you? Good afternoon, honorable members.
Good afternoon.
Yes, this council from Juba, South Sudan. Yeah, I would like to contribute to the motion about the violence and conflict resolution. First of all, I would like to first point out that violence is born in people or in human beings. You can't train somebody to be violent when he or she is not. So I'll talk about the cases of South Sudan. For us here in Juba or in South Sudan general and in the region, we have so many cases of violence. We have domestic violence, intercommunal violence, political violence, cattle rustling violence, and religious violence. So all these things, all these violences, they happen with the political interest, which is the main driver. So when we look at these violences, at the end of the day, they lead to the loss of lives of the innocent people. I'm very glad that this topic or this motion has been brought forward, and I'm honored to be part of this debate. In South Sudan here, violence is caused by main two things: poverty, illiteracy, and political interest. So when I talk of poverty, this is mainly about wealth, unemployment of the youth. When the youth is unemployed, and then a rich politician may come in and use the youth who is unemployed to cause havoc or conflict for his own interest. And that's why you see a country like South Sudan in the region are still experiencing the violence, mainly from the political, cattle rustling, intercommunal violence across the country. So in my view, to eradicate or to mitigate the violence in the region, mainly in South Sudan, we need to educate the youth, because illiteracy is very high here. Poverty is very high in terms of unemployment. Because if the youth is unemployed, he can easily be used by politicians who is looking for the interest. So basically, someone talk about the culture, intermarriages. We need to intermarry ourselves. Already is existing. South Sudanese men are marrying what? Ugandans and Kenyan Rwandese. But I've never seen a Kenyan guy, a Ugandan guy, marrying off a girl from South Sudan. So that's the main thing. If we can intermarry ourselves, we can easily eradicate this issue of violence. Honorable members, this is my appeal that we should adopt this resolution or this motion to come up with some measures on how to deal with violence and conflict resolution through education, culture, intermarriages, and we need to interact as well. Because, like me, I'm here in Dufa. I didn't make it to Arusha because of financial space. But if I was there, I would have interacted with some people there, whom am I seeing now. So interaction of the youth in the region can also reduce the conflict. Because if I was in Uganda, and I have some friends there, so, and those friends I can't find them, regardless of whatever violence may come up. So, for the issue of South Sudan, you still have a violence, a serious violence, political violence, cattle rustling, domestic violence, religious violence as well, intercommunal, all these things that are still existing. So it is a task to the region, the East African community, especially the youth, to make sure that a country or a member state like South Sudan, DRC, and other countries which are still experiencing all these things, we need to help them by engaging the youth, by empowering them to be independent, by training them, take them to schools, vocational schools. I think we can eventually reduce the issue of violence and conflict resolution can be achieved. So I can submit. That's how I talk about the culture. We need to interact culturally. Let's interact culturally. We need to see the culture of Kenyans, the culture of Ugandan, the culture of DRC, Rwandese, South Sudanese. We need to interact. We need to have that time, that venue, the event, the cultural day where all the East African youth, they can come together, interact. Therefore, we can achieve a lot as youth. Otherwise, we may end up being used by the politicians who are after their interests. If we don't come up with tough measures to tell our leaders that enough is enough, we need peace, we need non-violence environment where you can move freely from border to border, you can stay.
I
So
beg you
South Sudan
summarize.
is serious in need. Yes.
I
So
beg
South
you
Sudan is serious in
summarize.
need of the help, and I support the motion that we need to come up with some measures. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are getting 2 members this side and 2 members this side. Please let's summarize. We're out of time. The Honorable, yes.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. My name is Juma. I am happy that my brother from South Sudan has raised it, that we need to intermarry, and I'm hoping that from here we can be able to intermarry and go with some Ugandan girls and Tanzanian girls. Yeah, I think the motion is clear. It basically looks at education and culture. But I personally think the problem of violence in the region is mostly centered on the lack of political will by leaders. Even this education that we are talking about, if we don't have the will being pushed by the leaders, it will be very, very hard. I do believe that, honorable members, you know what is happening between Congo and Rwanda. And I also do believe that you understand that some of our East African member states leaders have been pushed by their own agenda to create inconveniences in some of these countries. And I think the political will should come from the leaders themselves. If you want to create a change in a neighboring country or AOB, you should be able to understand and respect that any manipulation or trying to push your interest in the political, in that country's politics, it will result into something. We should indeed, we should instead look at ourselves as people of one community, rather than focusing on our interest. What is Uganda going to achieve if they go and send their troops to this and that and that? I would also like to talk about conflict and violence at a grassroots level. Let's not just talk about the political up there, but let's just draw it down. Today, if you're in Uganda, there's a stereotyping that is going around about South Sudanese, about Ugandans. People even sometimes call some Ugandans that they cannot be trusted. You see, they say South Sudanese are violent people. So those simple stereotyping of calling some individuals and generalizing them with the whole country, it also results into violence. So we should stop using words like this tribe is bad. If I am bad to you, maybe I'm bad to you, but not the tribe. You see? So let's consider that, and as young people, we should always value that when we say something. Somebody talked about how we interact, way of life. Even when we're interacting, don't address me as, I think South Sudanese are the bad people. I think I heard that people are like fighting. You see? So we should try to avoid such things. Because of interest of time, Madam Speaker, I would like to submit here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I urge other honorable members to contribute because we are receiving the familiar faces. I beg us to contribute, all of us at least, let's contribute, and we avoid unnecessary movements unless it is so urgent. Thank you. Yes, the other lady.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to remind the Parliament about yesterday. I raised a point of including people with disabilities on the next run.
Information, Honorable Speaker, to that effect.
Yes.
Thank you, Honorable Madam Speaker. I want to comment shortly also on the motion pertaining matter of education. Honorable Hikram and the honorable member from Sudan have already given us an insight about state-sponsored war. Sometimes even the government drag the youth into this conflict. But for me, I want to look at it from the education perspective. We can, as a parliament, ask the region to develop a transformative pedagogy that is non-examinable, that can be used both in the formal and informal learning, so that we develop the culture of peace. Because the disagreement we have today is caused by unresolved anger. I remember, I think Honorable Howard pointed out that the disagreement that we are having is propelled by our leaders to cause division amongst the youths. As children are growing up, I remember sometimes when I was very young, I didn't remember I would come to Tanzania because I was told Tanzania call us Kenya's Nyang'au. Nyang'au means, in an English word, somebody who grabs everything. And that was as a result that the former EAC, the disagreement that led to the collapse of the former EAC, countries were blaming each other, and Kenya was at the center stage. People at my time have issues. Even so right now, still go back to Kenya, we have regional issues. So how do we have a regional transformative pedagogy that is used across the region? I beg to submit.
Thank you. We are having him and yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. When we look at conflict, it's basically an incompatibility has of two things that cannot be simultaneously fulfilled. So we realize that even you as a person, you can have a conflict within yourself. So meaning conflict is inevitable, you know. And now, if we fail to manage conflict peacefully, it now results into violence, you know. And what I would like to say is that, speaking from South Sudan perspective, I know most of you are already speaking from high-level perspectives, but then I would like to draw back to what my colleague online just said and what my colleague Juma said. Since we had the conflict that emerged in 2013 and that ended in 2018, I think there was a step that was taken, and now we have peace education has been incorporated into the curriculum. So we have things like peace clubs currently that all schools form them so that they can be able to be discussing issues of peaceful coexistence. And I think it will also be good if we can have a regional one that peace education is included, and it looks into the issues like mediation, topics like mediation, negotiation, and reconciliation. You know, it is important for the youth to have those skills such that we can be able to address conflict, because these are some of the measures that can easily address conflict before it flares up into violence. The other thing that I would like to talk about is that, as my brother online said, we have some of the conflicts, and the sister also said here that I heard of cattle herders. One of the conflicts that also we do face in South Sudan, and I think also in some other member states, arise from the farmers and cattle herders. We have people who rear cattle, and then because they mismanage, the cattle, you find that the cattle moves into the farmlands and then consume the crops. And then in that incident, sometimes violence, erupts out. And the violence is that one of the two must be having a gun. In our context of South Sudan, always we have seen that the cattle herders, they have the guns. So they can easily, use the gun to overpower the farmers. So it will also be good if we can be really, if the East African Assembly can be able to come up, with a regional regulation, on cattle movement, and also to see into it that disarmament, of cattle herders is taken seriously, so that it will really give way for the peaceful resolution of conflicts. Because someone who's already having a gun, looks at someone who's not having a gun as of no use. You see, so we need to first of all create that space of equality among the two, so that we'll be able to have a space for peaceful resolution of conflict. The other thing that I would want to also talk about is that...
Manage your time, please.
Okay. Is that my brother online said some of the conflicts that we have that erupt in violence is political. You know, now the truth is that the youth make over, let me say in South Sudan, over 70% of the youth, of the population are youth. So if there is any political violence that youth are involved more, it means that there is no space, you know, for the youth participation into the political arena in the country. So, and it is what we have been arguing in the country, that we need a quota to be given to the youth. And also the region can come up with a plan urging all member states to give a quota, you know, in the member state national governments, that set, for example, if this 10% quota or 20% quota for youth participation within the political system in the country. So this will help the youth, you know, this will help to reduce the political violence that youth are participating in. And also, what I would like to talk about is, you know, cross-border. For example, we have been having conflicts between our border and Uganda. And we realize that one of it is that there is illegal crossing, you know, of arms, you know, between countries. So it will really be good if also the region comes out, you know, with the, I don't really think now resolution, but we should also look in a way how, you know, we should penalize, you know, penalize countries that easily allow, you know, illegal crossing of arms into other countries to cause violence. Right, Honorable Speaker, I would like really to end here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dear Honorables, you reminded that you need to keep time. Time management is so crucial. Yes, Honorable.
Madam Speaker, I am Layo. Looking at what we are talking about from the perspective of education, behaviors, especially violence and all that, can be learned and unlearned. And for psychologists like Skinner, they came up with some theories. And one of them that I want to just cite it before I go to my point is the operant conditioning. If every day you wake up in the morning after leaving the chicken house and you make this kind of sound, then you give them food every morning like that, they will get used to it. They will learn it that once it is done like that, they are supposed to get food. In that same manner, when in the morning they come out and you make some kind of sound, you begin beating them, they will run away from you. So learning and unlearning. What do I want to bring here? Violence tendency can be learned and unlearned at the same time. So via education, just as my honorable colleague said, our education systems should really accept to incorporate in the system right from infantry. I mean, the nursery schools up to the highest level, so that those aspects of conflict resolution, peace building and the rest of it becomes part and parcel of the curriculum to help the young people who are growing. They grow up with a mindset that peace is good and violence is bad, right from the start of their education. That we are going to achieve something via conflict resolution and peace building. On the cultural aspect of it, our cultures, just as my honorable colleague's sister said, that culture can also be very devastating in dividing people, but also, on the other hand, it can also unite people and bring peace. Because there are some cultural practices, I want to talk specifically about my culture, the Acholi, in northern Uganda. We have the traditional justice system, and we call that Matopur reconciliation. Here, when things have gone almost out of hand, the two parties can be brought together by the traditional leadership, and something can still come out of the negotiation. And instead of taking the court orders and all that, where you waste a lot of resources, I think our leaders should be empowered, the traditional ones, to endorse some of those things, because there are certain things like issues of land and all that. They know it better than the court. The law is very complex in itself. The lawyers are there, they are just they learned and how to extort money from people. So I think culturally, we are supposed to embark on that so that certain things are kept in check. I beg to submit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Honorables, now it's time to vote. Thanks for your contributions. Those who second the motion, okay, those who support the motion, you're going to raise your hands as we've been doing. Yes. I request my clerk to count. Those who oppose the motion? Abstain? Okay. Thank you so much. I beg us to move to the last motion, and we are going to really be so quick. I beg us to be time managers, because we have a lot on the table. The motion reads, motion for a resolution of the East African Youth Parliament urging the East African Legislative Assembly to empower the East African Community Partner States to facilitate free cross-border movement of Congolese nationals within the East African community. The mover is, I beg Honorable Howard Mwesigwa to come forward. Thank you.
All right,
Madam
Speaker.
Sorry? Okay, I beg us to continue.
All right, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable colleagues, good afternoon. For the record, my name is Howard, Honorable Howard Mwesigwa from Uganda, and more than privileged to be moving the conclusive motion urging the East African Legislative Assembly to implore the East African Community Partner States to facilitate free cross-border movement of Congolese nationals within the East African community. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And that motion will be seconded by Honorable Brian.
I, Brian Odero, Chair, I second the motion.
All right, Madam Speaker and honorable colleagues, we had an issue on the order paper. This particular motion seems to have been erroneously eliminated, and that is why perhaps you do not see it on your order paper. But on my own behalf, and perhaps on behalf of the Office of the Clerk, and the clerks rather, I beg your pardon for that. But we feel that it is pertinent that we, the young people, should make our voice and opinion known on the subject, and even further reduce it into writing, as and when we make the report on the aspirations of this particular house. So, honorable colleagues, you will realize that on the 29th of March 2022, i.e. this very year, the Democratic Republic of Congo joined the East African community, thereby becoming the 7th partner state. And this was in light of the 18th summit resolution of the East African Community Heads of State who made that resolution in consultation and on recommendation of the Council of Ministers that indeed the Democratic Republic of Congo had met the criterion that is requisite for any country to join the East African community. And the preceding recipient before was the Republic of South Sudan. And we've seen that the integration of South Sudan, as represented by the delegation from South Sudan here, has been of tremendous improvement to the development and also union of the region around East Africa. But also, honorable colleagues, we note that when we look at Article 104 of the treaty establishing the East African community, the partner states did undertake and agreed to adopt measures to achieve the free movement of persons, labor, and services, and to ensure the enjoyment of the right to establishment of a residence of their citizens across the board, across the community. And we also note, honorable colleagues, that the East African community has the capacity to be a nucleus for the integration of Africa as a continent. And that, of course, will speak fundamentally to the adoption and implementation of the African Free Continental Trade Agreement, which was adopted earlier on, preceding this discussion, but has had issues with implementation because nations are still hell-bent on the regional blocks, and their loyalty lies with the regional blocks against the African Free Trade Continental Agreement. So we believe that the East African community can be a nucleus or the foundation or the fulcrum upon which this African integration is going to oscillate. So we also note, honorable colleagues, that the East African community now, by virtue of the fact that now we have the Democratic Republic of Congo, and I'm glad to report to you, the House probably already know, that our clerk here is actually the inaugural member, and I think we should give him a round of applause. And it is my ardent hope, as the mover of this motion, that in the subsequent, perhaps the sixth East African Youth Parliament, I will probably have a more equitable representation of the Democratic Republic of Congo. But, honorable colleagues, as I was noting earlier, that now, by the virtue of the fact that we have Congo or the DRC joining the East African community, the East African community now stretches across from the Indian Ocean to the Atlantic, right? And we ought to celebrate that, because despite the fact that we have residual challenges with integration, I think it's worth the celebration. And we note that the people that have actually been against, and the major arguments that were made against the addition of Congo, or the DRC to be in particular, for avoidance of doubt, to the East African communities because of the insecurity that there is in Congo, right? But we recently saw a battalion of East African forces going to intervene in the Congo. My speech this afternoon has no connection whatsoever, very remote, to the political stability or instability in Congo. That is a political question. However, we note that by the time South Sudan was added to the East African community, we had political and security instabilities in the South Sudan, right? But the East African community has played a critical and fundamental role in the resolution of those issues, historically and in the contemporary setting. As to the fruition of the same, honorable colleagues, that's a subject of another day. But still, it goes without saying that the addition of the DRC is a critical improvement and has certain benefits that will accrue to the community by virtue of that addition. However, conclusively, I do note that there are still residual challenges with the movement, especially of Congolese nationals, across the region. For instance, they still have to pay visa fees to enter Uganda, or for that matter, any country in the East African region. And when we were coming, we had issues with that. In fact, there is an honorable member from Congo who was unable to make it here. He stopped halfway, I think, in Uganda. I beg to be corrected. I think in Uganda, yes, in Uganda, and could not come through Kenya to Tanzania. Why? Because of the issue of the visa and the ancillary travel documents. So,
Honorable, I beg you, summarize.
Much obliged, Madam Speaker. I was heading to the conclusion. Thank you for your mercies. All right, so honorable colleagues, against that backdrop, it is my humble supplication to you that you be pleased to pass this motion, to pass a resolution in favor of this motion. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you for your presentation. I beg us, whoever is going to present, we are given 2 minutes, strictly 2 minutes. one actually one. We're out of time. Yes, Honorable.
Good afternoon, honorable members. I'm Agwil Tong. I just want to support the motion that raised by Honorable Howard. Let me say, yeah, they are Congolese and they are now part of the community. So they have the right for the free movement, and they have the right to enjoy their membership in the community. So I really support the motion, and I hope all of us also should really advocate for the custom union protocol implementation, so that we don't face such experience as happened to one of our colleagues who didn't make it here. Thank you.
Thank you for summarizing. Yes.
Thank you very much. I also support the motion, though I would have some more additions. For example, in a discussion, I found out that DRC itself levies a lot of taxes to people who are entering from East Africa. And if at all this is implemented, this motion is put in place, other people from East Africa would also get that chance to freely enter DRC without being charged a lot of fares, which I am told is about $50. The other addition I would love to have in this motion is that the East African states also implement the free movement of all people in East Africa. For example, we all faced this challenge. Not all of us though, but the fact that we could not cross, some of us could not cross because we only had national IDs, and a few calls here and there had to save us. I think this motion should have somewhere to show that, to also request the member states to implement fully the free not trade now. I think right now it is only transport for everybody, free crossing of the borders. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Honorable Yusuf.
Thank you, Honorable. I think the member states should put into practice the protocol, the establishment of the East African Community Common Market. Under Article 5, under Article 4, Objective 2, Paragraph A, it is very clear. Says there should be members are free to move to any other member states to do business or to move for their own personal businesses. This has to be implemented and respected. However, the debate or the motion should not only be limited to DRC citizens. It cuts across. I personally am a victim. I was going to South Sudan by road this very year, but I was forced to pay a lot of money to cross the border, and I had all necessary documents to support my movement, even from my ministry. But the customs officials said pay £5,000. Now, we should establish investigative committees around the borders to handle the officials that ask bribe from the people crossing into the borders. And they should be brought to books, they should be punished. Lastly, we should also encourage peace around the borders. Recently, we've been hearing that some Ugandans have been shot while crossing into the the South Sudan borders. So if we don't think of strengthening security around the borders, it may be hard for other people to be allowed into the countries. But most importantly, nationals must respect the required laws for you to move into a given country. If you know these are the required documents, carry the documents with you. Don't just move because you are from East Africa. Please have the documents with you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. we're having one more member, then we close the motion. Yes?
Yeah.
Please summarize.
Yes, I'm just summarizing, not taking much. Thank you so much. It's unfortunate that you were asked to pay 5,000 or how much?
£5,000, comrade, but later on I paid 3,000. I negotiated.
That is an appreciation because 3,000 is just like around 15,000 Ugandan shillings, not 15, even 10,000 Ugandan, not even 10,000 Ugandan shillings. But anyway, it's unfortunate like that. I have a feeling that this does not only happen to the people of maybe Uganda or Congo. Even it happens to South Sudanese who are entering Uganda. And I think there are those who can testify that. The problem could be simply because I think the people at the immigration or the customs, most of them, they are not enlightened about the East African community, that people are already together. And I think this agreement, of course, it being done up there and then being passed down, people need to be taught, especially those at the border points. They need to be taught that this thing is effective. You need to start adopting it. You need to start allowing people from the East African community to enter freely. So I think education also matters a lot. People need, not education, but of course people need to be enlightened and be taught more about this agreement or this integration of the East African community. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members, I beg that we vote. Yes. Those who support the motion, even those who oppose. Those who support? Those who oppose? Okay. This is good. The majority are supporting the motion. I'm inviting on Madame Sharon to
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. So, I believe we've come to the last session of this Parliament. So, protocol observed, I greet you all. In this session, I would like us to have the closing remarks, and I'll be inviting some of our partners to give us 1 or 2 words in a minute or so. So first, I'd like to invite Tunaweza Organization, Mr. Lugome. Please take the floor.
Right Honorable Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, clerks, members of the Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Yes, I think it's evening now. Well, I'm so happy to be part of this session, 5th session of the East African Youth Legislative Assembly. And we have been in this process since the first session of the Parliament. And I would like to congratulate every one of you. So clap hands for yourself for being part of this session. And actually, you have done a lot. I can see you have been improving from the practicing this Parliament. So that's good of you. I also would like to congratulate Faraja African Foundation for keep the mutual partnership between us and them. And I would like to say that this partnership will not ending here. It will be continuing, and I would urge you for all of us here to go and advocate for what we have been discussing here in our countries. And also, we have to go back at home and spread the message of the goodness of the East African Youth Parliament. With that regards, nawakaribisha Arusha. Welcome again to Arusha, Tanzania. Tanzania is very good, and this evening, those who are drinking those hard liquors and those sweet ones, and those who love music, today we have something, eh? Yeah, sure. So, with that regards, I would like to say thank you very much. I love you all. Thanks.
That's what I've been expressing. Thank you very much. That was a wonderful speech. I'm inviting Success Hands. Mary Nisa, please take the floor.
Honorable Speaker, Vice Clerks, honorable members of this sitting, a very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Mary Nsia Mangu. We are delighted to be here. This is our third time participating in East African Youth Parliament. And we can see that there are so many improvements each year, and we are really looking forward for greater heights in the coming years. So congratulations for all who have participated this year. We hope to see some of your faces again next year. And here in Tanzania we say kazi endelee. So kazi endelee, do not just stop here. May it not just be a place that you have discussed some motions here, but you should carry the same energy when you go back to your country. So a very good evening to all of you.
So Tanzania Women Lawyers Association was to give a speech, but since there is no one, I will only say thank you. So I'll be giving my remarks from Faraja Africa Foundation. Once again, my name is Nawira Shalom Chantal. I am the programs manager for Faraja Africa Foundation. Of course, I thank God for today. This wouldn't have happened without him, the mercies, the journey mercies, and for bringing you people up to here safely. I'd like to thank the speakers. You did really well. The clerks, the sergeant-at-arms, and my honorable members. I do not call you normal participants. I call you honorable members at this moment. Thank you for representing your homes very well. You did great, I really must say. And now that we've come to the end of this, I'd like to thank my Faraja team. Faraja team, especially the digital guys. I see you at the back. Please come forward. Tekla, Joshua, everyone. Louise, Patricia, can you please stand? I would like to introduce my team officially, and I would like to say thank you. We can't see you at the back really if you're waving from that side. Kino Enoch, Birunji, Natasha, and out. Faraja team, can I see you? All of you. Not everyone knows you. Yes, I thank you very much, team. Thank you so much for the work. You did well. So I have a few closing remarks to make. For each country that has been here and that has been able to participate, as Faraja would like to request you people to have country leaders. Country leaders will be the people that will be spearheading your movement sometimes, and they'll be the people that receive strategic documents from us to share with you people and have discussion points right before these parliaments are done. Then resolutions will be as well shared with them, so they can be shared with individuals as well. Then the parliament has not just started, really. This is something that is going to keep on going. And I urge all of us to be our own, our own friends. Let us watch each other's back. If not now, never. We are the youth. This is our chance to take the spaces that are available. This is our chance to participate in policies. This is our chance to implement policies that we feel that we really need. This is the time to create the change that we want. It's not going to be about the elderly, sidelining us all the time. Let us take our spaces. Then I thank you once again. Congratulations. As I'm closing this event, today we will have a cultural evening that will start from 8 and then it will end at 9. So this is going to close down and then we'll have you people prepare on time. Then secondly, my delegates that are traveling tomorrow, let's be awake by 5. Breakfast will be served at 6. We'll be setting off at 7 sharp. Let's keep time. Please note that.
Yeah.
Let's keep time. And then, once again, I'd like to clap for you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. We try again next year.
Welcome.
We fight for the change that we want.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Speaker.
Welcome. Gigi.
Thank you, members, for your contributions, for your cooperation and participation. Thank you so much. I wish you all the best. Let's go home and implement. Let's go and impact our fellows for the betterment of all of us. I beg us to stop from here. I wish you, I wish you all the best in everything. So I'm adjourning. I've adjourned the parliament. Thank you so much.
Point of order. East African anthem.
Okay, you lead the East African anthem. Thanks for your reminder. One stanza is enough, I think.
All of it.
Okay.
I have this.
Let us sing the East African anthem. E Mungu twaomba uilinde Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuwajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu. Uzalendo pia mushikamano viwe msingi wa umoja wetu, na turinde uhuru na amani, mila zetu na desturi zetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuwajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu. Viwandani na hata mashambani, tufanye kazi sote kwa makini, tujitowe kwa hali na mali, tuijenge jumuiya bora. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuwajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.
Special announcement. A certain honorable member emphasized the point of intermarriage. Women of different countries move to gents of different countries. Thank you. Go. Go.
For me, I want to go to
Go.
Western to drill.
And when they come to you, don't refuse, okay? Yeah.
For me, I want to go to Western Uganda to drill water. I want to go to Western Uganda to drill water.
One is there.